Ladies and gentlemen, welcome today to another edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast right here on KRC. I'm Keegan Schneider, and I'm going to bring you to life what happened during yesterday's Throwback race at Darlington, specifically for the Cup Series. And we'll take you through chronological order through Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. We'll talk all things fantasy, updated power rankings, and more following yesterday's race at Darlington and a slight preview to next week at Dover. Thanks for everybody tuning in here on this Monday evening after the race, of course. Had a lot of fun, honestly, watching the race yesterday. Went to my grandparents' house to watch it, so already kind of a Darlington throwback when you're watching with people that had seen some of those paint schemes a while back, especially the ones that were ran from the 70s and 80s, but nevertheless, it was kind of great. My grandpa, hearing the stories like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that car on the track or whatever, way back when. So we'll talk about some of that as well. And thanks for everybody tuning in here today. Joey Logano fans, Snowman Dude 22, welcome to the stream. Everybody coming in, all right, 5 people watching. So, first and foremost, we're going to start off with stage number 1. Before the competition yellow, only about 10 laps into the race, Aric Almirola hits the wall hard off turn 2. Very similar spot to where we saw Jimmie Johnson end up spinning in the day Darlington race last season when they first came back from COVID. Remember, Johnson was leading stage 1, about to win the stage, was on the inside of a lap car, just lost control of his car off turn 2, hit the inside wall. This one was a little different. Almirola did get out of shape, similar to what Jimmie Johnson did, but he wasn't side by side with the car necessarily. I guess from what Almirola said, that Stenhouse had let him through, and then Almirola got past him cleanly, and then when he got loose off turn 2, Stenhouse got into the back of him. It didn't look like Stenhouse, was involved in an accident like we've seen Stenhouse involved before, where he kind of drives in over his head. It just looks like Almirola got loose. Stenhouse was behind him. Stenhouse tried to check up, couldn't check up in time. And Almirola was already so sideways, a slight bit of contact, knocked him straight into the inside wall. He hit that wall a ton, by the way. I've never seen a car hit a wall that hard at Darlington, at least on TV. Ever really. He hit the wall so hard the radiator was pushed underneath of the splitter of the race car. And the splitter, of course, was underneath the race car as well, so badly pushed in, caved in, and damaged that the front wheels were off the ground. So he was just kind of sliding along there, couldn't get the car to completely stop. Jackson Thomas as well, welcome to the stream. So that was the first caution for incident during the day. There was another earlier caution as well, which ended up rolling into the stage break when Kyle Busch had cut down a right rear tire. He went for a spin. Great save by Kyle Busch, by the way. These cars were so hard to handle all day long. He sensed he had a tire going down. He was leading a lot of laps very early in the race before Truex was able to take the lead from him. And then eventually, obviously, literally like a lap or two later, not even, I think Kyle Busch is actually in the lead. He started getting a little wobbly. Truex got underneath him, got around him, and then Busch lost control. He did tag the right rear into the outside wall, but not enough of a heavy damage to cause any further tire rubs from that point on. Great save by Kyle Busch, and ended up having a pretty solid finish at the end of the day, so that was very, very good for him. It saved his day really before it got really, really in-depth. So, yeah. That was pretty much that. That ended up leading into the competition yellow because it came out a couple laps before lap 30. And there were no other further incidents in stage 1. Martin Truex Jr. went on to dominate, winning the first stage of the race. The stage 1 results looked like this. Martin Truex Jr. first, Denny Hamlin second, Tyler Reddick third, Kyle Larson finished 4th, Kevin Harvick rounded out the top 5 in stage 1 with Joey Logano 6th, Ryan Blaney 7th, Chase Elliott 8th, William Byron 9th, Alex Bowman rounded out the top 10. So, yeah, there you go. All 4 Hendrick cars were in the top 10 at the end of stage 1. And then there would have been 2 Gibbs, an RCR Chevrolet, and 2 Penske Ford. And a Stewart Haas Ford as well. Going into stage number 2, very early in the stage, similar to Aric Almirola's accident off turn 2, Cole Custer hits the wall a ton too. Custer actually hit the wall a little bit harder. He was carrying a little bit more speed. He was trying to jump to the inside of a couple cars. Anthony Alfredo had gotten a little sideways on the restart, a couple laps into the restart when he was on the inside of Quinn Houff. I'm not sure if they were battling for position or not, but one way or another, they were side by side. Alfredo got loose, slid up into Houff, and as he started sliding back down the track, he caught the 41 Cole Custer, who tried to go 3 wide underneath to just basically avoid those two, thinking they were going to crash. Custer was in the wrong place at the wrong time, hit the wall a ton. His day came to an end. Tough break for Stewart Haas Racing once again, and that was only the third caution for incident throughout the course of the day, and it was only the second from last because the next caution for incident happened on the very next restart. Again, a couple laps into the restart, Kurt Busch ends up going up in flames after hitting the inside wall, very similar to the first two crashes that we had seen with Almirola and Custer, only this was off turn 4 instead of turn 2, and he didn't hit the wall clearly nowhere near as hard as those other two. Looked like he might have been able to at least keep the car going. The front of the car was caved in a little bit, but because he cut an oil line, he ended up breaking into flames, had to get out of the car, of course, and that ended Kurt Busch's day. Kurt Busch, much like Stewart-Haas Racing in general, have just had an off season. Kurt Busch not as off as, say, Custer and Almirola, but considering Kurt Busch is below the cutoff line halfway into the regular season, it's got to be concerning for his sake, especially with all these different winners, on whether or not Kurt Busch is going to get into the playoffs. It seems like once a year at least with these 16-man playoffs, there's that one driver that misses or is on the very edge of the playoffs and barely gets in that you're like, how did that even happen? I look back to that year Joey Logano ended up missing the playoffs when it was 16-man. It was a 2015. He won at Richmond, but then he got the win taken away from him. He ended up getting to keep the win for his career wins, but he got all the points and everything docked away, and they didn't count it towards the playoffs. And he never won another race the regular season, and he struggled for most of the year in Penske equipment. And he ended up missing the playoffs. Of course, Jimmy Johnson the last couple of years, shockingly missing the playoffs as well. And Kurt Busch could be tailing into being that one guy that we can almost count on making the playoffs every year. That is struggling right now. Another guy, 2018, Denny Hamlin, he went winless throughout the season. He got into the playoffs on points, but he was like the 14 or 15 seed going in. He just did not have a very good season there either. And Kurt Busch is having one of those seasons right now. He's not quite in the same, echelon of equipment. He's not on that top-tier Chevy team like Jimmy Johnson was or like Denny Hamlin is with Joe Gibbs Racing when he had that winless season a couple years ago, or even, Joey Logano with Penske being one of the top 4 teams right there. So, again, Chip Ganassi's always been kind of a B-level team, but I think with Kurt Busch being a former champ, it's definitely concerning for sure. And there were question marks on whether or not this was going to be Kurt Busch's last season in the Cup Series, if he was going to retire at the end of the year. And the more and more he has this kind of a season, I know his kind of competitive edge, I know he doesn't want to finish off his career like this, but at the same time, you have a season like this, and it's like, where can you go from here? I think it's really strange with Kurt also, because we saw it with Jimmy Johnson at the end of 2017 where he kind of faded, and then 2018 you could tell he wasn't himself, and he barely scraped it into the playoffs, and then he barely missed it the next 2 seasons, eventually ending his career. With Kurt Busch, he's been consistent. Kurt Busch has been consistently 6th through 10th in points, not really contending for a championship, but 6th through 10th in points the last 4 seasons, and he's at least getting one win, and he's running competitively, maybe contending for wins elsewhere also throughout the course of the season, even if he doesn't get the wins, which is unlike what Jimmy Johnson was doing in his last couple seasons. So it's just really weird that he went from a near championship 4 driver last season to, having this bad of a year this year. It's just insane. And it's not like how Kyle Busch had an off season last year and it was just off by Kyle Busch standards. This is off by all standards, whether it's a Kurt Busch standard or, just anybody really. I mean, very shocking. We've seen Jamie McMurray make the playoffs in that one car a couple of years before Kurt Busch stepped in as well. Not the year McMurray retired from full-time action, but the couple of years before that he was getting in on points or getting in with a win as well. So it has been a long time since we've seen the one car run this badly outside of that 2017 with Jamie McMurray, 2018 season? Yeah, 2018 season with Jamie McMurray, excuse me. But, very, 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 very shocking, to say the least. We go later into Stage 2. Nothing else really happened other than Ross Chastain and his crew tried a little bit... that was in Stage 1, when Ross Chastain tried that pit strategy by his crew, where he ended up not pitting the extra time. Everybody was pitting really every 30 to 40 laps under green flag conditions in this race because there was a 2 to 3 second difference, a lap difference between old tires that were 30 to 40 laps old and new tires, plus we'd seen some cording on tires. Of course, Kyle Busch's was big on that before the competition yellow after just 25 green flag laps that his tires corded, and that's what eventually cut his right rear tire down, but his left rear was cording as well. So a lot of those guys with the rear end of the car sliding around on this older Darlington surface was causing a lot of these cars to get out of shape. They were chewing up those rear tires quite a bit, and very surprised Ross Chastain did that. And he was flag stops happened with about 30 to go in stage one. Ended up going a lap down, couldn't get the free pass, and never could get back on the lead lap with the free pass the rest of the race. So that derailed what could have been a top 10 run for him. That is 2 weeks in a row, Kansas and Darlington for Ross Chastain, where it looked like he was going to have top 10s in both races. And with Kansas, it was the late race cautions that cost him because he was running 6th or 7th there late in the race. But then all the cautions, they decided to stay out of the pits and keep the track position. They couldn't get the good restarts there late, and he ended up fading outside the top 10. And then this week, where he was in the top 10, but it was his crew chief, or whoever that I would assume is crew chief, that ended up making the call to stay out there in stage one. So that definitely cost him. Feel bad for Ross Chastain. He has deserved back-to-back top 10s, and he didn't get one in either races. So it got to be very frustrating for that driver, the number 42 car, to say the least. So I forgot to mention that, by the way, with stage one. So Martin Truex Jr. ended up going on, though, to win stage number 2. The stage 2 results look like this, with Martin Truex Jr. second, Kyle Busch with a quick rally back to second place after cutting that tire midway through stage 1. That was very impressive how quickly he came back, and I thought he might have been a contender for Truex late, and we'll get to that in a couple seconds. William Byron ended up finishing 3rd, Denny Hamlin 4th, Kyle Larson rounded out the top 5. Christopher Bell also in a different tire strategy, complete opposite of what Chastain tried, where Bell stayed out an extra 15 laps, then pitted, and was able on 15-lap fresher tires to work himself from about a 10th to 12th running range where he was earlier in the race to finishing 6th in the stage, so it got him more stage points. Of course, playoff points are awarded throughout the top 10 at the end of the regular season. Bell's right there at 11th, so they're trying to get every point they can to get back inside the top 10 in points. Joey Logano finished 7th, Reddick 8th, Ryan Blaney 9th, and Chris Buescher rounded out the top 10. That was the slow rolling of the day there for both of those Roush cars late into stage number 3, the third and final stage of the race. We had more dominance for Martin Truex Jr. His dominant performance continued. We're up to that point in the race. Up until the final 2 green flag pit stops, he had led all but 40 laps in the race up to that point. He led pretty much almost every lap other than that, except for the couple green flag laps during green flag pit stops. But Kyle Larson started closing on him a little bit later after the final set of pit stops. They pitted a couple laps earlier, so they were able to gain that extra time on those fresh tires. And even with the couple lap older tires, he was able to run down Martin Truex Jr. He got to within about 2 to 3 tenths of a second within a couple car lengths. Actually looked to make a move to that left rear corner panel on 2 or 3 occasions there in the last 25 to 30 laps of the race, but he just was not able to get around Martin Truex Jr. It looked like the lap traffic was costing Truex as well. Things were not looking to be on his side, but Larson just could not get around him, and it all came down to, will Martin Truex Jr. make a mistake with the pressure of Larson coming at him late in the race, challenging him. First time anybody had really challenged Truex all day on this slick racetrack, and Truex, was sliding off the corner so much. He was really manhandling that race car, and Larson too, and everybody throughout the course of the day. But in that dire situation where he had to get the job done, he did. So kudos to Martin Truex Jr. for going and just, not only putting a butt whooping, but even having that challenge late for Kyle Larson, on a super long green flag run to end the race. Again, no cautions incident in the final stage, so a 100-lap green flag run there to the finish. Very cool to see. It was a great race, I thought. Just getting to see those cars slide around. I've seen some negative shade about, people not liking it, but you're not going to please everybody on every given weekend, really any given weekend. It seems like NASCAR fans in these days, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed the race. Enjoyed watching those guys, duke it out. Honestly, Darlington is about as close to a dirt track as what we've got in NASCAR that isn't a dirt track. Of course, they ran on dirt Bristol this year, but just the way those cars were sliding. Even Truex was hanging that right rear corner panel out against the wall. Might have even brushed the wall a couple times there late in the race trying to hold off Kyle Larson. Just really fun to watch. And Larson got so close. He got under him a couple times. I think that last time he got under him before he finally started to slip back those last couple laps, it looked like he was going to try that slide job, and he knew he wasn't going to come close to clearing him there, so he had to get out of the gas and cut his momentum down, and that's where Truex was able to pull out to about a second and a half. I think it ended up being a 2.5 second victory there by the end of the race. There were great battles going on. It seemed like William Byron was kind of slowly but surely increasing on Kyle Busch, but he was trying to hold off Denny Hamlin there in the late laps. Bowman and Blaney were battling a lot throughout most of the day. Actually, Logano and Hamlin, the entire second stage looked like they were about to wreck each other there a couple times. They were racing so hard, and I thought for a second they were going to end up both on the fence, but despite how aggressively they were racing each other there, especially Logano racing Hamlin, They somehow stayed off of each other. That was really fun to watch. And so there were definite battles throughout the middle of the pack. And then, of course, that battle for the win between Truex and Larson. I thought it was a great race. I thought it was about a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. Honestly, it was, I think, one of the better intermediate races of the season. We've actually had a lot of good intermediate races this season. This was the first with the 750 package. This was very similar to Homestead. Very, very similar, and I thought this was a better race than Homestead simply because of the finish of the race was a lot closer, where Homestead you didn't have really close finish at all because Byron took off and nobody was really able to catch him, but at least Larson was able to make it very interesting there, those final 30 laps to say the least, so that was a lot of fun in yesterday's race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the top 10 for the unofficial results to yesterday, well, I guess they're official now, official results to yesterday's race. Martin Truex Jr. with the win, again winning both stages in the race, 7 playoff points for him, so that's great. Kyle Larson finishes a close second place. Kyle Busch third, great day. He was in the top 3 all day, even after cutting that right rear tire down. We'll get to more on him here in a couple minutes. William Byron fourth, Denny Hamlin fifth. So another top 5 for Denny Hamlin. No wins to show for it, though. Kevin Harvick had another solid day in the top 10 all day for Stewart Haas, just carrying that team on his back, finishes 6th. Elliot ends up finishing 7th. Chase Elliott, that is. Ryan Blaney very well impressed me, finishing 8th. I'll get to that in a couple seconds as well. Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman rounding out the top 10 in 9th and 10th. So great to see both rush. Fenway 4th inside the top 10 as well in this race. So that is going to wrap it up for as far as talking about the race itself. Now we get into the fantasy portion. Of course, this is the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. You can join the KRC League on the NASCAR mobile app or NASCAR Fantasy, or I should say, NASCAR mobile app. Go to the fantasy section or website. But either way, go to the fantasy section, sign up with your email, search for KRC League. You can join. Chance to win 2 tickets to next year. Any race that you want. If you win either the regular season championship for our fantasy league or the playoffs, everything resets. Everybody's in the playoffs, so everything will reset for the playoffs. You'll have another chance to win there. 2 tickets to any race of your choosing, NASCAR related in 2022. I will buy them, and I will try to make it out as well for that race. So definitely something to play for, and I know you might not win the regular season championship because we're almost halfway into the regular season, but it gives you a couple weeks of practice to get an idea of, what to have by the time the playoffs do end up starting. So definitely worth joining. It's free, so you got nothing to lose. I literally have nothing to lose. So into the fantasy. My fantasy team yesterday was solid. In the league, ended up finishing a very close second place, and that literally just came down to simply bonus points. It's a good day for your fantasy team when all 5 of your drivers finish inside the top 6, with your worst driver being Kevin Harvick in 6th. I didn't have the winner on my team, and the guy who scored the most points because he won both Stage 1 and Stage 2, and that was Martin Truex Jr. I would have had him in the lineup, but I'm trying to save him on starts because I've already used him 6 times this year. You can only use him up to 10 times in the regular season. We still got 14 more races left in the regular season, so I've been using Truex quite a bit this season because he's been good, and I probably should have used him yesterday, but I'm not bitter about it because the rest of my team did their job. I had the 2nd through 5th place cars on the team, so I had Larson, I had Kyle Busch, I had William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick. They all ran in the top 10 all day, scoring a bunch of stage points. So over 200 points for me. Andrew Hollenbach, I believe, if I remember correctly, ended up winning yesterday at Darlington. Yep, for our throwback by 8 points over over me, I should say. So it was definitely very close there. And even inside Uranus, round out the top 3, only 10 points behind me. We all had pretty solid days for the most part. Patrick Shadley finished 6th, but he still got the lead in the overall standings. And speaking of those overall standings, Patrick Shadley still out in front, but boy, it is close. Only 5 points between Patrick Shadley over Andrew Hollenbach for the season-ending prize. I'm still in 5th place, but I'd close that gap a ton as well. I'm only 105 back in 5th, and considering I scored 229 points this week, that just goes to show that if you're within 200 points going into the last week of the season, mathematically, you still have a shot to win it. So as of right now, it looks like the top 6 are all within that kind of range right now. 7. The top 7 are all within that kind of range right now. So it is very well possible for anybody to still win this league. Anything could get shaken up here with half of the regular season still remaining. That's pretty much all I got to talk about the fantasy portion, at least my personal fantasy team. But we always do race predictions for the first set of the week. Again, we do 2 fantasy episodes. We do one with the race review, like we're doing right now, and then the day of the race. So yesterday, a little bit before the race, usually within a couple hours before the race starts, we'll talk NASCAR. We'll talk predictions primarily for the race leading up to it. So my predictions going into yesterday's Darlington race were pretty good for the most part. We've been pretty dominant on it. I know I didn't predict the winner correctly. I predicted Harvick to win, but he ran the top 10 all day. And again, that's just been the story of my season so far. Yeah, I haven't predicted the right winner so far this season. I'll get there eventually, but it seems like everybody I pick has been running well. They just haven't gone to victory lane. It's just a little bit frustrating because last year I predicted the winner 9 times, which is tough to do. I mean, that's a quarter of the season. So the fact that we're 12 races in now and I still haven't predicted the right winner, you would think I would have done it a couple times already. But I'm definitely due, and one of these weeks I'll get it right. But that was definitely something yesterday, that's for sure. I kind of figured Harvick could at least have a good day. He does keep his top 10 streak alive. And I'll get into that real quick because we'll go through the must-haves, the sleepers, and the don't-haves going into yesterday. See how they performed, what my predictions were for them. So my first prediction, we'll start off with the must-haves. All of them ran very well. The must-haves I had were Larson, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. They all finished inside the top 6. They were all in the top 10 all day, scored a bunch of stage points. For Kevin Harvick, that ended his top 5 streak, so he had 5 straight top 5s going in at Darlington at least, so that streak came to an end. But he does have 11 straight top 10s at Darlington, so look out for Kevin Harvick in the Southern 500 later this year to likely have another great run there. 14 top 10s now in 18 career Darlington races for Denny Hamlin, so that percentage keeps going on up. I predicted both of those guys to run very well throughout the day. I expected at least being in the top 10 all day. They both ran there, and I expected them to compete for the win. Really, Truex was, and then Larson late was the only ones to compete for the win. But I did have Larson as a must-have as well. Kyle Larson finished second. He didn't lead as many laps as he did in 2 of the last 3 races prior to that at Darlington, nowhere near it. So it wasn't a dominant run by any means, but he has a 6.6 average finish going into the day. In fact, he finishes second. That average finish is going to go up even better. So look for Kyle Larson, I think, to contend at Darlington, especially considering that is going to be a night race, and I know this didn't end in the nighttime, but it was ending in like that dusk time, the cooler temperatures later in the day, so maybe look for Kyle Larson to run well there later this season. As far as the don't-haves go, I pretty much struck out on that. I'm not going to lie. This is where I was bad on my picks this week. So the 2 don't-haves I had were Ryan Blaney, which is my favorite driver, so again, unbiased with these don't-haves, and then Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott, he was a don't-have because he only had 3 career top 10s in 8 races at Darlington. I know he ran there well both races, but at the end of the day, he couldn't get the job done, even if it wasn't his fault, which I understand that. Still, even before that at Darlington, he didn't really have the best success either. So I went with Chase Elliott on the don't-haves. I said not to start him. Well, he kind of proved me wrong. Not kind of. He did prove me wrong pretty well right there. Let's see. Let's pull up how Chase Elliott did. Yeah, I mean, he ended up having a top 10. He finished in 8th place, but I want to make sure. There we go, okay. Yeah, Elliott was 9th as far as points scored. So, yeah, he finished inside the top 10 and ended up total on the day with 33 points. And only 3 stage points, but still, yeah, he exceeded my expectations. My predictions for Chase Elliott was that he was going to be the 4th of the Hendrick drivers. Bowman had more bad luck during the race where he was running well, and it actually looked like Elliott was going to be last of the Hendrick drivers there for a decent part of it. Byron fell out of the top 10 midway through the race, but was able to get back in there by the end. And so Byron, Larson, they beat Chase Elliott. Bowman did not, so my prediction for Elliott was wrong, although I was close, even though he finished in the top 10. And I even kind of mentioned, too, that I was like, oh, he still could get a top 10 and be the 4th running Hendrick driver. So that was my prediction for him for that reason, because I thought he could have had a chance at a top 10 still, considering he ran well for most of the race during the races last year. But, yeah, ended up proving me wrong on that. And for Ryan Blaney thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly, proved me wrong yesterday. this is one of Ryan Blaney's worst racetracks. And as a Ryan Blaney fan myself, and maybe for any of you guys that are Ryan Blaney fans, this is extremely alarming, but in a good way. I think Ryan Blaney getting eliminated in the round of 16 last year might have put a chip on his shoulder saying, we have to run well at my worst racetracks. His worst racetracks, statistically, by far, are Richmond and Darlington. Those are two races he struggled at last year. They're the first two playoff races, not only last year, but again this year. But what's promising is we go to Darlington in extra time. So he got to run Darlington earlier this season. He got to run Richmond earlier this season as well. Remember, because of COVID last year, they could not run Richmond. So going into that race, they probably didn't have a lot of high hopes for it. Well, at Richmond, he scored stage points, ran top 5 at stage 1 in that race, faltered in stage 2, but he worked his way back up to finishing 11th, which, yes, it's not a top 10, but he still ends up having a pretty solid day overall. It still exceeded my expectations. I expected him to run that 15th to 20th place range, and getting an 11th place finish pretty good. That's something he's going to need to try to leg out when the playoffs start later this year. And Darlington being his second worst racetrack, he was in the top 10 all day, unlike Richmond where he was early and then faded and then got back in late at least for a decent finish. He was in the top 10 all day. He was running pretty much in that 5th to 9th range the whole race, ended up finishing 8th. And this was even after getting into the wall on multiple occasions, whether it was battling with Bowman there the one time. Bowman kind of ended up sliding into him. But yeah, that still, and then he ended up putting it in the wall himself. He was in 5th place with like 20 laps to go, battling Denny Hamlin. Then he put it in the wall, overdrove the car a little bit, but still brought it home. And Ryan Blaney very thoroughly exceeded my expectation. Rob Slobs on Bob's God, welcome to the stream. I also changed my name. Well, welcome to the stream. I greatly appreciate it, though. And then the sleeper picks from yesterday. These guys honestly kind of depressed me a little bit because I thought that they could have better runs. Kurt Busch, obviously, he just kind of lost control, and he wasn't really running particularly well. He was about 15th when it happened. Who knows where he could have finished. He had a lot better success at Darlington, and he has 6 top 10s in an 8-race Darlington stretch. I think this just goes, again, to show Kurt Busch is having a really bad down year, so it's definitely a risky start to put Kurt Busch in your lineup, even at tracks he's good at, because he's not getting the job done this season for whatever reason, whether it's him, which, with him being a championship driver, it's likely not him. It's likely just the equipment itself just not being up to par this year for whatever reason, even though that one team was pretty good last year for the most part, especially on the 550 track. So I don't know what they're doing there. This was a 750 track, so it's a little bit different, but still very alarming there for Kurt Busch. And they better wake up here pretty soon, or they're going to be in danger of missing the playoffs, because he just keeps slipping back more and more and more as we're getting into the middle of the season. And we have seen with Jimmy Johnson here these last couple years where you can't just wait till those last couple weeks to get hot. Like Johnson last year, where he ran top 5 at Dover, and then he ran top 5 at the Daytona Road Course at the end of the regular season, but it still wasn't enough. By the time they got into Daytona, he was still on that bubble. You do not want to go into Daytona on the bubble if you're Kurt Busch, because anything could happen there. We can see the same thing that happened with Johnson last year and really the last couple of years. And like I said with Logano, we talked about that a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to stress it too much right now, but Kurt Busch needs to get it going again. Austin Dillon, this is one of his best racetracks statistically. He had 6 top 12s and 9 career Darlington starts here, and I expected him to get a top 10 yesterday. Let me take a look at the finishing results here. I got the fantasy points still up, so I need to go back to the finishing result. Oh, no, I didn't mean to back completely out of the NASCAR mobile app. Hang on here, hang on. Hang on a quick second. Austin Dillon, that's Dover. We were at Darlington yesterday. Darlington. It's taking forever to load, sorry. Yeah, he finished 16th. Honestly, not a good run, considering Austin Dillon's had good runs here in the past. I mean, he just finished second in the Southern 500 last year. I know it was with the 550 package, but again, his career, 6 top 12s at Darlington, 4 top 11s in the last 6. That is an even ratio of 550 races and 750 races. So Austin Dillon definitely disappointed me yesterday as well. Inside Uranus, welcome back. Changed it back a little, Keegan. Oh, you changed your... I got you. Oh, welcome. Welcome, Inside Uranus. So, yeah, tough break there for Austin Dillon. Then the last driver that we had for the sleeper picks going into yesterday was Matt Benedetto. He started off very well, stage 1. He was running top 10, and then he just kind of fell. just outside the top 10 at the last second. Then he just kept falling back throughout the race and finished finished 19th in a number 21 car. Just a down day for Matt Benedetto. It was very strange considering he had 2 top 10s in the last 4 races there going in, and he had 3 14th or better place finishes going in to that race in the last 4 attempts. So not alarming for Benedetto because they were on a little bit of a hot streak going in, but definitely thought they could have had a better finish. They did not. So I nailed the must-haves perfectly. They all finished in the top 6, and I told you guys to start. So what I've seen is the must-haves. I've generally been right. The sleeper picks, it's hit or miss, seemingly, and same with the don't-haves. It seems like it's been hit or miss, where I'm either completely on or I'm completely off, so or partially on. It varies on a week-to-week basis, but usually with the must-haves, we have been dead on accurate all season long. Yeah, I was Snowman Dude 22. Oh, you were Snowman Dude 22. Gotcha. Why is that Justin Sozio's, Oh, well. Anyway. Where were we going to get at next? Okay, well, we just got done talking about the race. We talked about the fantasy stuff. I guess now all we got left is the power rankings. So if you guys are new, we do power rankings here every week on the channel following the race. We didn't start it at the very beginning of the year, but I wanted to wait like 4 or 5 races into the season. Then we started doing power rankings from, I believe, race 5 on. And we adjust these on a week-to-week basis. And these are the top 10 drivers that I think are competing for the championship as we speak. So these are 10 drivers rather, in specific order of who I think the championship contenders are going to be. So you guys can maybe, if you have your own list, I'd like to see down in the chat below, or grade me on where I think, or where you guys think my list is at as well. And we'll go from there. So following Darlington yesterday, the driver who falls in at number 10, I say falls because he has been on the downward trend here. Outside of 1 week, he moved back up a little bit a couple weeks ago after a win, and then he started moving back down again. And that guy at number 10 is Brad Keselowski. Keselowski has been falling from grace, let me tell you. Now, he did not have a good run yesterday. I mean, very abysmal. I know Jeremy Bullins was not crew chiefing at the start of the race and wondered if that could have hurt him, and that very well could have been, but Keselowski's generally pretty good at Darlington, so it was, he just won there a couple years ago in 2018 as well, and that was actually the last race that we had with the 750 package, so definitely concerning there for Brad Keselowski. It's really strange that he's been better on the 550 tracks this year versus the 750 tracks, considering that he only made the championship for last year because he was getting wins on the 750 tracks. So very weird that Brad Keselowski has not been the same on the 750 tracks this season. So definitely concerning there. And outside of the win at Talladega and then the tire strategy that got him a top 5 at Kansas, he's only got those 2 top 10s. And those are his only 2 top 10 finishes in the last 6 races. So he's had 4 finishes outside the top 10. He's had 3 finishes outside the top 20 in the last 6 races as well. So Brad Keselowski is definitely starting to slide downwards. He stays inside the top 10, and the only reason he stays inside the top 10 is because he's got that win, so he's got that security that he's in the playoffs. Plus, he's a veteran in the sport, so you have to assume he's going to turn it around at some time. But right now, I have to put him in the bottom of the top 10 list, but he is still barely inside the top 10. Coming in at number 9 is our first of just a couple drivers without wins that is in the top 10. That is Mr. Chase Elliott. He exceeded my expectations yesterday at Darlington, coming home with an 8th place finish. They haven't had race winning speed a whole lot this season, but not the next race, but in a couple races we go to Circuit of the Americas. He's the best road course racer hands down in the Cup Series currently right now. And not only that, we have Sonoma coming up, I think like the week after the Coke 600. So we have 2 road courses coming up in the next 4 races on the schedule. He's very good at Charlotte. He won one of the 2 races on the oval there last year. Almost won the Coke 600 if it wasn't for Alan Gustafson bringing him on the pit road during that overtime, or right before the overtime restart. He might have won that race as well and got the sweep for the Charlotte Oval during their doubleheader there last season. So I really do think that Chase Elliott here, and Dover, he's got to win at Dover as well in his career. These next 4 races for Chase Elliott, I expect him to get at least a win in these next 4 races, get that first win of the season, and I think he's got a very good shot of doing that. He stays inside the top 10. He's been right around 8th to 10th the last couple weeks in the power rankings. He's been hovering back and forth basically just on a week-to-week basis. If he's going to be 8th, if he's going to be 9th, if he's going to be 10th. And he comes in 9th ahead of Keselowski, who continues to slide. And Elliott maintained right there. 8th place finish. Expect him to run worst of the Hendrick guys yesterday, considering that his success at Darlington wasn't as great as the other three in recent years or recent races for those guys at Darlington as well. But again, solid 8th place finish. Had to put him 9th on the power rankings list. The next guy is the only other driver inside the top 10 without a win on the power rankings list. That would be Kevin Harvick. Great day for him. It looked like he was starting to slide outside the top 10 there late in stage 2, but they got to work on that race car, got him up to a 6th place finish. And for Kevin Harvick's stats so far this season, guys, he's got 9 top 10s and 4 top 5s. Those 9 top 10s tie him for second most in the top 10s list with Denny Hamlin so far this season. And the only driver who's got more top 10s than Harvick and Hamlin is William Byron, who just got his 10th in a row yesterday. So Kevin Harvick, I know Stewart-Haas has had their struggles this season, but Harvick by no means has been struggling. Yes, he won 9 races last season, but considering he didn't win the last 7 to 8 races, what was it, in the last 7 races last season, he didn't win. And this year he's coming, out of the gates, kind of finishing how he did last year, where he wasn't running bad by any means. He was still finishing good at least. He just wasn't really competing for wins as much as what he was earlier in the season. And that's the same Kevin Harvick we've seen the first 12 races this year. He will get that win eventually this season. I mean, he's been within striking distance. He's finished top 6 2 races in a row as well. So I expect Kevin Harvick to get back out there, that's for sure. Fantasy's getting close now thanks to P-Chat. Yeah, he had an off week last week for sure, and it seemed like, I know I was on, and looked like you were on as well. You were only 10 points behind me there inside Uranus, so definitely shaping up to be a good one for sure. We still got 14 more races. It'll be a lot of fun coming down to the wire. Drivers that just missed the list this week that we have had on the list in the past. Christopher Bell just outside the top 10. He ended up having a good run midway through the race, but a lot of that was likely the tire strategy in stage 2. He fell outside of the top 10 there late. And he's only got 5 top 10s on the year versus Chase Elliott has 6. Keselowski's only got 5 too. See, I mean, Keselowski's got 5 top 5s. It seems like he's either competing for the win or he is abysmally slow. That's been Keselowski's story this season. Or like Talladega, where he didn't lead a lap except for the last lap. So, again, concerning, but he's still just ahead on the list, ahead of Bell. Keselowski's 9th in the regular season standings. Elliott's 8th, and Harvick's 7th. So, nothing really to scoff at there. Again, Bell is just innocent bystander. If he didn't finish in the top 10 yesterday, the other guys did. And they are a little bit ahead of him in points. So that's the only reason Bell's out. Austin Dillon was very close, but he didn't have a good day yesterday, so I couldn't move him into the top 10 this week. He finished 16th. He did not meet my expectations. I expected him to run top 10 yesterday, and outside of stage 1, he did not do that. And Tyler Reddick's on the uphill climb. He's in the top 16 in points now after another great performance. Reddick's got 5 top 5s this year. I didn't even realize he's got that many, so I guess he's on the uphill climb. Might have to keep an eye on him. Alex Bowman's been in the top 10 in recent weeks. He fell outside of the top 10 after last week's race at Kansas, where he had a little bit of bad luck when running with Bubba Wallace, and then he got sideways himself this week and got into Blaney, trying to make a pass on him inside the top 10, battling for position there late in stage 2, and then had more problems early in stage 3, finished a few laps down in that one. He's 14th in points, and he's only got 4 top 10s on the year. That one win does give him security for the playoffs, but honestly, as far as the season goes, this season doesn't look that much different than last season for Alex Bowman, where it seems like he's got the speed. He doesn't necessarily get the finishes. He's scoring a decent amount of stage points, but he had that win early last year. He got the win early this year, so he's got that security for the playoffs. And we've seen the last couple of years that even though he doesn't have a lot of playoff points, he seems to run well when the time counts in the playoffs too. So maybe expect that again this season. But this season, again, looking oddly similar to last year for Alex Bowman, where he has some luck, but not a whole lot of it, that's for sure. Tyler Burback, welcome to the stream. LOL, I had a good day in fantasy while forgetting to pick team manufacturers. Oh, hey, at least you bailed yourself out with having a good team, though, for sure. I know one week it didn't save for whatever reason, which I only would have gotten 5 bonus points anyway, so I guess that didn't really matter too much. I didn't strike out completely. 5 points is still 5 points, but it could have been a lot worse for sure. But I think yesterday I only got 10 bonus points. Guys in the top 10. I think Andrew Hollenbach, who won, his 5 guys were in the top 7, and he didn't have Truex either, and I didn't have Truex. But the only reason he beat me is because he had 15 more bonus points than me, and those 15 bonus points to my 10, he beat me by 8. That was enough to, his 25 bonus points versus my 10 was 15 more, and he only beat me by 8, so that was the difference there. But yeah, a lot of guys in the fantasy league were just over 200 yesterday. All right, so back to the power rankings list. Again, Brad Keselowski, number 10. Chase Elliott, number 9. Kevin Harvick, number 7. Number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Joey Logano. Joey Logano is second on the Penske drivers on this list. He's currently 4th in the regular season standings. He also had a good day going for him yesterday until he had a pit road speeding penalty that costed him a top 10 finish. Actually looked like he would have finished top 5. He was running about 4th or 5th the entire final stage before that. And then finished top 5 there at the end of stage 2 as well. He faltered. He's got 6 top 10s on the year. Again, he's having a good solid season. He got that win earlier on the season as well. Very, very, very early in the season. Looked like he could have won more than just the Dirt Bristol race. He competed very well. Should have probably, well, I wouldn't say should. Well, he could have won the Daytona 500, I guess. If his block was clean, he could have won it. And then he almost won the Daytona road course too. So he's been very close to winning a few races this year. In recent weeks, hasn't had the greatest of runs. Talladega, he flipped. And then he didn't have a top 10 last week. And then Kansas the week before that. Let me see here. I don't even think Logano finished in the top 10 at Kansas. I honestly can't remember who all finished where at Kansas. I'd like to think he did, but no, he didn't. Logano finished 17th at Kansas. That's right. I forgot he was like way off compared to the other Penske guys on speed. So that's 3 races in a row. Joey Logano has not finished inside the top 10. Well, that's concern. I'll have to keep that in mind going into Dover next week. If he doesn't have another good run, he's going to drop further in the rankings. So between Keselowski and Logano, man, they are struggling right now, like bad. I don't know what's going on. And I've stated the last couple weeks, too, with those two struggling, Blaney's the best guy at Penske right now, and I guess that leads into number 6. Number 6 on the power rankings list is Ryan Blaney. Blaney's the best of the 3 Penske drivers so far this season. He's got just as many top 10s as those guys. He's got one more than Keselowski, and he's tied in top 10s with Joey Logano, but he's got more stage wins than Logano. And he's on a lot better streak as well, where Blaney has finished in the top 11 in 8 of the last 9 races. The only race he didn't was when Larson basically took him out while Blaney was running for the win at Kansas. So otherwise that'd be 9 straight top 11s versus Logano has 3 finishes in a row outside the top 10. And then Keselowski's only finished in the top 10 twice in the last 6 races. So, yeah, again, Logano was sick. That's right. Logano was sick. But still, I don't want to fault that too much against him. That's why he's been dropping in the power rankings, because when he won Dirt Bristol, I think I had him in my championship 4 at the time. And that's because he was competing for wins early in the season. But now, not so much. He's only 1 point ahead of Blaney as well in the regular season standings. He's 4th. Blaney's 5th, like right behind him. So, it's what we're looking at right now. They're very close on stats. All 3 Penske guys are right on top of each other on stats, but Blaney's been the most consistent recently. So that's why Blaney's barely ahead of Logano. And then Keselowski's been a little bit worse compared to Harvick and Elliott as well. So that's why those guys are ahead of Keselowski also. So into the top 5, coming in at number 5 on the power rankings list, the driver who as of right now, I think will make a run for the championship 4, but he's not in my championship 4 quite yet, is Wild Thing, Kyle Busch. Yes, Kyle Busch is 5th on the power rankings list. And I gotta say, Kyle Busch is back, ladies and gentlemen. And I wanted to wait a little bit. Because yes, he got that win at Kansas. But we had to wait here. Look at Richmond, 2 weeks before Kansas. He was top 3 all day, had a chance to win late. Okay? Finished 3rd. Great run. That was the best run Kyle Busch has had all season. Talladega's Talladega. I'm not going to take too much into consideration there. And he bounced straight back after Talladega, getting a win at Kansas. Won a stage at Kansas as well. So he was, again, just like Richmond in the top 3 all day, but he got the job done there. He didn't get the job done at Kansas or at Richmond. And then we go into yesterday's race. Again, he was top 3 all day, finished 3rd. So Kyle Busch has finished in the top 3 in 3 of the last 4 races. He just made the power rankings list for the first time this season after winning at Kansas. Got up to 8th, moves up to 5th this week. I'm high on Kyle Busch right now. I'm very high on Kyle Busch. He is starting to click away, and this is what I expected out of him. I predicted him to win 3 to 4 races this season, and we get into the middle of the summer where we go to some of his better racetracks. I think tracks he can compete. Nashville, he's one of the only drivers in the Cup Series currently that has experience at that track and has won there a lot before in the Xfinity Series. So expect Kyle Busch to win there. There's going to be practice to qualifying for that race as well, so that's really going to help him. He seems to run well at Charlotte for the Coke 600 a lot too. I think the Pocono doubleheaders will help. He's been really good at Pocono with the 550 package. He won there in 2019. He ran well there in both races last year. He got that contact with Blaney and he basically accidentally got dumped there off turn 2, and it looked like he was going to contend for a win that day as well. So those are races I predicted Kyle Busch to win before the season started. Those are races I still think that he can compete. And I think now that we're seeing Kyle Busch, again, 3 top 3s in the last 4 races, Kyle Busch is back, guys. Kyle Busch is back. For my power rankings, I got Eric Almirola, Cole Custer, Kurt... Oh, no. 1, 2, 3. It's terrible. Felt really bad for Almirola and Kurt Busch. Both got dumped by Stenhouse. I wouldn't say they got dumped by Stenhouse. I mean, Stenhouse was there, but they got loose, and, he tried to check up. It's not like he... just flat out ran into the back of him and turned him. They just got too far sideways. And we saw cars getting sideways all day, but you can't just lift every time when a car is getting sideways. Especially when they're sideways lap after lap after lap like they are at Darlington with the low downforce, high horsepower package. You just can't anticipate it. Austin Dillon has a win in the Coke 600. Yeah, and he got a win at Texas last year. Same package is what we're running there this year. He can run well. He can run well there again. But yeah, Kyle, I'm back on Kyle Busch's bandwagon here. Even in the Truck Series, he's looked like old Kyle Busch again, where last year he ran in the Truck Series. I think he only won, 2 of the 5 races he ran? So, and he has lost a couple this year, but he's been more competitive, it seems like, and he's been more competitive in the Cup Series, too. Also, Kyle Busch's stats this season, he's got 7 top 10s, 5 top 5s, a win and a stage win, and he's back in the top 10 in points. He was just 14th in points 4 races ago before Richmond, and he has clawed his way back into the top 10 already. So looking for more playoff points for every spot he gains in the top 10, with the guys kind of sliding back in points that are ahead of him, like Keselowski's barely ahead of him now as well. He might be able to pass Keselowski here in these next couple of weeks when we go to Kyle Busch style racetracks or tracks he's better at. So very high on Kyle Busch, but he's just outside my Championship 4 if the Championship 4 was this weekend. Here are the 4 drivers who I think would make the Championship 4 if it started this weekend. We're going to start off with number 4 in the power rankings list. The last guy I would have in my final 4 would be Kyle Larson for Hendrick Motorsports. Larson has been sliding back on my list, and he's had a lot of inconsistent finishes, much like Brad Keselowski lately. But the difference is Kyle Larson competed for a win yet again yesterday. Second straight race, he had competed heavily for a win. Didn't lead. I don't think he led any laps in yesterday's race, in fact, but he ended up competing there late. And unlike Kansas, he didn't drive in over his head. It looked like he could have had times, especially when he threaded 3 wide up the middle there, trying to make a pass closing in on Truex. That scared me a little bit, but if anybody could do it, I guess Kyle Larson would be one of those drivers that could do it. Who will get 60 wins first, Harvick or Busch? Isn't Harvick already there? Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know what they're at right now. I'd have to look up on Racing Reference who's got more wins. I don't know. I know they're both close. I thought Harvick might have had 60 already. No, he didn't. That's right. He got 50 last season, not 60. He got 50 when he won at Darlington, so he's at 58. How many's Kyle Busch at? Is he at 58 too? Harvick's got 58 now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know what Busch is at, though. Exact number, at least. But I know he's close to 62. Well, considering who's ran better so far this season, I mean, they're both running good, but Busch has been running even better in recent races, so maybe I'd say Kyle Busch. Thought Larson was going to wreck trying to thread the needle. I did too. I mean, incredible. I did state that this was more like a dirt track compared to any other track on NASCAR that's on asphalt, just with the way the cars slide. And the cars slide at Atlanta too. It's a mile and a half. It's a little different. It's not as narrow and tight. They both are tight at 50. Yeah, I'd go Kyle Busch if I had to pick right now. Better equipment currently. I think that's going to help. Driver talent, though, they could both get it done. But I'd lean towards Kyle Busch on that question. So with Kyle Larson, here's the reason why I don't have him as my championship favorite right now, and a lot of guys do. And it's because of things that we saw already this year on 3 races. The Daytona Road Course, and I talked about it last week too. The Daytona Road Course, Atlanta, and Kansas. He should have won all 3 of those races, and the reason why he didn't is because he's just driving too hard. There is such thing as driving too hard, wasting your equipment like he did at Atlanta where he burned those tires out just trying to drive hard every lap of the race, and it bit him at the very end. Blaney was able to save his tires better over the long run and beat him. And then we saw on late race restarts where everything's just clumped together. Couple laps shootout, Daytona Road Course, he had the freshest tires, was up to second, was easily going to catch Logano. We saw what Bell was able to do on fresh tires and catch Logano with a whole full lap left after he got around Joey. Larson was going to be that first guy to get there and not Bell, but because he slid it into the tire wall trying too hard to pass the car on older tires, which I think was Kurt Busch at the time, that he would have passed if he just took an extra corner and took his time, and ended up with a 20th place finish. Then we saw at Kansas last week where he had a bad restart, then he was put in a desperate situation, and instead of just finishing the race to get the top 5 that he, again, would have had, so he would have won Atlanta if he just saved his tires. Okay, at least he brought it home and still finished second there. Because unlike the Daytona Road Course in Kansas, those are races that he, could have won if he just did his job at the end of the race, but he just overdrove the race car. And that's just the problem Kyle Larson's had for most of his career, but I think it's just shining more now because he's in more race-winning situations now that he's with a better team like Hendrick Motorsports, where Chip Ganassi, he had done that too, but he just wasn't competing for as many wins. So that's kind of what I feel like with Kyle Larson right now. I'll have him in my championship 4 simply because that team has had speed every week. But if he misses the championship 4 this year, it's going to be because of these opportunities he's had to win. And we talk about it all season, every year since this playoff format has come into fruition with the stage points and everything. Playoff points matter. So Kyle Larson losing at Atlanta, losing 5 playoff points there, losing 5 playoff points at the Daytona Road Course, losing 5 playoff points at Kansas. He get 15 playoff points. So we go into the last race of the regular season this year, the last race of the round of 8, we go to Martinsville, and he misses the playoffs by, let's say he misses the championship 4 by 6 points. If he just would have won 2 of those 3 races, or let's say he misses by 4 points. If he just would have won 1 of those 3 races I stated this year that he should have won, if he just would have, calmed down, get the car in one piece to the end of the race, and survive, he'd be in the championship 4. I'm telling you guys, this could come back to bite him. So although that team has the speed, Kyle Larson still has to show just a little bit more maturity behind the wheel of a stock car. I'll leave it at that. Again, I harped on it last week too, so I didn't want to, overkill it and do this every week, because if he does it again next week at Dover where he's in, contention to win and he overdrives the car late, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to keep saying the same thing until he fixes it, because I think he should be criticized for that, but to a lesser extent, because he is a very talented race car driver. He can get it done. He's just got to harness it. That's all he's got to do. He's just got to harness it. I have faith and capability that he can do it. And he is a championship competitive driver. He's just not quite there yet, and that's the only thing holding him back right now. He's got the equipment now. That is literally the only thing holding Kyle Larson back. Coming in at number 3 on the list is still, in my opinion, the best Hendrick driver so far this season. William Byron Byron is number 3 in the power rankings list. How could you not put him inside the championship 4 right now? He's currently 3rd in the point standings. He just picked up his 10th consecutive top 10. Youngest driver to ever get 9 consecutive top 10s. Now he's got 10 consecutive top 10s. And we're going into a track where he finished in the top 5 last year at Dover. He's a great road course racer as well. So Circuit of the Americas, he can have a good run there. Guys, I'm telling you, he could have 12 straight top 10s here before we know it. I would not be surprised at this rate. And he's been the most consistent Hendrick driver this season. He's got to win just like Larson and Bowman. He's been far more consistent than Bowman. And he's been far more consistent than Larson because of those reasons I stated where Larson is not getting, to the end of the races. He's had more chances to win than Byron, but he's not sealing the deal. And not only he's not sealing the deal, but he's not getting top 5s when he gets those opportunities either, where William Byron's consistently top 5, top 10. So Byron has the most top 10 so far this season as well. Again, 3rd in points. How could he not put him in the top 4 at least? I have him number 3 on my list. I have Hamlin 2, Truex 1. Yeah, so that's where we get into this debate between Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. Those are my top 2 as well all season. All season I've had Denny Hamlin as number 1 on the power rankings list, but not anymore. I have him at number 2, and I have Martin Truex Jr. at number 1, and here's why. Well, Denny Hamlin has been consistent this year, but he does not have a win this season. And this is exactly what I just talked about Kyle Larson. I will say the same thing for Denny Hamlin. Hamlin definitely has the talent. The difference is between Larson and Hamlin is that Hamlin does have the experience and Larson doesn't quite have as much. I mean, he's got 10 less years of experience than what Denny Hamlin has, roughly. So, with that being said, Larson can kind of get a slap on the wrist for it because he is younger, and we've seen younger drivers kind of drive the same way. So Larson, is no exception to the rule there, but that is why I don't think he's ready for a championship. And Denny Hamlin, people say that he chokes away wins, and matter of the fact that that's just been the case. And this year, he had a chance at Kansas late. He actually got around Larson, and he overdrove the car trying to win the race instead of getting the good finish. I look back at the Brickyard 400 last year, where Harvick was just simply putting pressure on him, trying to get Hamlin to overrun it, and he chewed up the right front tire too much, hit it into the outside wall, cost him a chance to win his first Brickyard 400, the only crown jewel that he still has not won up to this day. Now, Hamlin's had bad luck on strategy, too. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Hamlin's got the most top 5 still this season. But when you have no wins compared to Truex having 3, you got to put Truex at number 1. And that's the difference also between Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Larson. The reason why Martin Truex Jr. is a championship driver, he has won a championship, and Denny Hamlin has not, and why I don't think Kyle Larson is ready for one yet, is because at the end of the day, when you have to get the job done, the pressure is on the line. Does Martin Truex Jr. ever make a mistake? I don't think I could say that Martin Truex Jr. has made a mistake in pressure-packed situations. The only time I could say that he has, not won the race in a pressure-packed situation was 2018 at Martinsville, and he just flat out got dumped by Joey Logano. So that was out of Truex's control. He did everything right. He raced him clean, raced him hard, and he still got around him. But then he just got dumped in the last corner, basically, by Logano. He didn't completely spin him out, but, he did everything but spin him out. But, yeah, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, that's the only thing holding him back. And for Hamlin, I feel like Larson is on the track to being the next Denny Hamlin, where he can win 5, 6, 7 races, in a season. But is he going to contend for a championship? Especially in this current format where you get into the championship 4, you have to put all your breads into one basket. And you have to go hard for one race, for the win. Okay, and I can't count on Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin to get that job done, but I can count on Martin Truex Jr. to get that job done, especially the way he has ran in those situations so far this year. And the fact that he has won a championship under this format before in those situations. So Martin Truex Jr. is definitely the best driver so far this season that is most worthy of the championship. So that's why he's number 1 on the power rankings list ahead of Hamlin, Byron, and Larson, the top 4 again. Yeah, usually Truex's pit crew screws him even when he was driving the... Yeah, exactly. It's never Truex himself. I can't recall a time where Truex just didn't get the job done because he overdrove the car and just, made a boneheaded mistake. He just doesn't make mistakes. And that's why he's a champion of the sport. And the way he's running this year, he could be a multi-time champion. Hamlin could have about 69 wins in his career if he didn't choke. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's possible. What is he at right now? He's like in the high 40s, I think. He's like very close to 50. Yeah, I mean, it's very well possible. Truex 1, Hamlin 2 until he gets a win, yeah. I mean, even if Hamlin wins, though, if Truex is going to finish second to Hamlin, I still think you got to put Truex ahead. If Hamlin starts to click off more than 1 win, like if Hamlin gets to 2 wins and he's still got this big points lead, then yeah, I'll put Hamlin in. But, or just dominate a race like Truex did yesterday, too. And like Truex did at, well, he didn't dominate Martinsville. I guess Blaney dominated Martinsville, and then the pit crew mistake gave Truex an opportunity to win. But again, Truex got that opportunity, and he didn't blow it. So, last year's playoff race at Darlington, he didn't wreck Elliot. And okay, that's true. So that's the exception to the rule. That's the only race that Martin Truex Jr. has ever, gone in over his head and made a mistake trying to go for a win. Anything else was out of his control. Good point there, Tyler. I forgot about it. I don't know how I forgot about that because I literally saw that race in person. And somehow it slipped my mind there going through that. I wouldn't say rant. It was a good discussion. But yeah, usually it's not Truex himself. Outside of the Southern 500 last year. That's the only exception to the rule. But yeah, that's my top 4. It seems like you guys pretty much agree, though. I mean, you guys were saying, we had 2 people say that I have Hamlin 2 and Truex 1. So yeah, that's, exactly what I have. You guys didn't say much about Byron in the chat when I mentioned Byron was into my top 3, but he was in 3rd last week in my top 3. He stays there. Another top 10. You can't knock him down. And we did move Larson up quite a bit compared to where he was falling before, just because of the speed alone. That's the only reason I have him up there is because that team has had more speed on a consistent basis than any other team, but Larson just hasn't been able to seal the deal. If he could seal the deal, he could definitely get a lot more wins going his way. Hamlin's got 44 wins. Yeah, he could definitely get to 50, though. I mean, he's still... I know he's 40 years old now, but, I mean, Truex is, 42, 43, and he's still clicking away. Harvick won 9 wins at age 44 last season, so, I mean, Hamlin can still have some competitive years left in him. Maybe not many left, but he could still have a few more competitive seasons, that's for sure. And you never know when any win's going to be your last either, so Hamlin just choking away these wins. As you're getting later into your career, come on, Denny. I'm pulling for him. I want to see Denny, obviously I want to see Ryan Blaney win a championship. He's my favorite driver, but, I mean, there's some drivers in the Cup Series that haven't won a championship that are long overdue, and Denny Hamlin is probably the most overdue right now of any driver who hasn't won a championship that's currently in the sport, so... Definitely agrees. I got Cody Ware at number 4. Oh, okay, so gotcha. Yeah, you stated your top 3 or Cody. Oh my goodness. Hey, at least Cody Ware didn't crash this week. So, yeah, was he even in the race this week? I feel like if he was, he might have been in it. No, I think he was in the race, but he stayed out of trouble. Good for Cody Ware. He stayed out of trouble this week. Especially when you're on these 750 horsepower tracks. That's when he seems to get the most. He finished 34th. He DNF'd. He had a drive shaft issue, but he finished ahead of those other 3 guys that got in a wreck, the 2 Stuart Hoskars and Kurt Busch. So, hey, I mean, he didn't finish last. Good for him. All right, that's going to wrap it up here tonight. We got a busy night on NASCAR Heat 5. NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode episode at Kansas will be coming up tonight, as well as the NASCAR Heat 5 Talladega race. We'll start off with the NASCAR Heat 5 Talladega race, then we'll go to the career mode. Talladega will be on the custom schedule mode for the championship mode race, custom schedule season on championship mode with our custom car. Halfway through the season, race 18. It's only a 94-lapper at Talladega, so you don't want to miss any of it. It'll be action-packed throughout. Thanks for everybody tuning in again for this edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. I'll see you guys on Thursday for the pre-race edition because I'll be going to Dover this weekend. So usually we do them on race day, a couple hours before the race. Because I'll be at the track this weekend, I will not be able to do it on race day. So Thursday evening, Thursday afternoon, we'll have the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast prediction episode for Dover. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. And again, I'll see you for some NASCAR Heat 5 action in a few.